Alright guys, the October 27th patch notes were just posted and they're interesting to say the least. So I'm going to run through them and talk about what each of them are, what the changes are. Then I'm going to talk about what the philosophy of the developers are. And then I'm going to go through in an in segment, which I think is really, really important for you guys to watch. And I'm going to go explain like whether this is good, whether this is bad, what the devs are doing really, and then what this looks like for the future of the game. So yeah, you definitely want to stick around for that part. All right, getting right into it. So this is going down on the 26th in Japan / 27 in NA, I believe. It might be the 26th, I could be wrong, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Half a day. So they say in particular that in this preface, they're trying to develop the game based on play data. Now I know that seems kind of innocuous and kind of like, yeah, of course they're trying to use data, right? But you don't want them to do that as their main source of balancing. Because what this does essentially is it doesn't show the full truth. And it has a lot of problems because particularly what they're really going to be balancing it off of is win rates, right? And so they're going to look at every single character and go, okay, Guntank has a 50-50 win rate. So good character, perfectly balanced, right? When I think everyone thinks Guntank should at least be getting some buffs, right? And the reason how that works is you have multiple things that can sway this. It's not like it's actually like a total proper representation of a character's ability. What they do, for example, is if you're playing with like a meta character or a character that just gets picked a lot, like Guntank, right? I see it in all my games all the time. If it's on both teams, it will automatically have a 50-50 win rate. Like if every game played had a Guntank on the attack and the defense team, there will always be a 50-50 win rate on the character. Meaning no matter how good or bad it is, it's balanced by this thought process, right? Now, another way to take a look at it is on something like Mahiroo. Mahiroo is trash, and yet, based on win rates, it's going to look a lot better than it is because you have people playing Mahiroo, mainly you have people playing Mahiroo on situations where it's really good for it, right? So some people might be like, okay, I'm going to play Mahiroo on Harbor Defense, where it's like the only really strong position for it in the game. And I'm going to absolutely like win the game, you know? And they get a lot more value out of it. And so they play it then, or you have one tricks of Mahiroo, like people who only play Mahiroo and get really good at it playing it. So it pushes up the win-loss ratio, essentially. So it might have more like a 48% win-loss ratio, when if you're really evaluating it compared to other characters, it might have something more like a 40%, you know? And so they're going to look at it and be like, okay, it needs some minor changes, nothing too crazy. But that's because they're not looking at fundamentals or looking at numbers that don't tell the truth. Because they just don't, you know, yeah. And all right, moving on from that segment, we'll go more into that later. But so they're doing it based off play data and they want our understanding. Great. Me. All right. They do say they want to explain the reasoning, which is good. They want us to understand the vision of the development team, but I will tell you what their vision is in the end. And it doesn't really matter what their vision is if they're not capable of actually achieving that vision. So, right. Okay. Then they also say they're doing a monthly balance patch for Gundam Evolution, which is good. We like monthly patches. That's good enough. I'm not going to expect them to do like an every 2 month balance patch. That's or every 2 week balance patch or something. So every 1 month is pretty good. Like respectable number. So they say for changes to Gundam Exia and Zaku II Melee, the impact of melee units, especially Gundam Exia and Zaku II Melee on matches, has been higher than expected, as they have a 2 to 3% higher win rate than range units. Okay. So what are we looking at? Like RX78 Gundam having a 49% win rate, and then Exia and Zaku II Melee having like a 51% win rate? You know? And like this is partially where it starts getting really flawed. But you could have something like Barbatos, or you could have something like Jim Sniper have a very low win rate because it's really powerful, or because it's like it's hard to aim with it at a lower rank where the majority of people are. But at the very high ranks, it could be absolutely appallingly strong. And so you're like, oh, it only has a 45% win rate. Well, let's buff it. And then at the high ranks, it just completely destroys everything. Because this also doesn't account for these things becoming standardized, essentially, between the ranks. It doesn't account for characters being balanced in one section and imbalanced in one section in the other ranks. And as I talked about many times, we don't need to cause this conflict of changing or of balancing for the good players, balancing for the like lower rank players. Like that's Stupid. You don't need to do that. They do force that, right? And it causes issues of like, oh, they balance for the pros. Stupid. So, going on from there. For some reason, they think that the range units are not very good, and that's just troll, because I don't know about you guys, but RX78 Gundam, Pale Rider, Asshimar are super powerful. So, okay, all right, guys, moving on. Like, this is what they came to the conclusion of for their balance patch. Like, they weren't like listening to other things people are saying. Like, dang, bro, I love being hard CC'd all the time as a tank. I love just being punched in the face by Asshimar when I'm just vibing on like Pale Rider. I love having Barbatos just flying from the ceiling and kill me. I don't like there's so many other problems. There's so many stuns. There's so many like just weirdnesses in the game. There's so much awkwardness with the tanks not being able to tank. There's so much of the characters in the game being too strong in certain areas, like Zaku Melee being kind of weak until it gets its rage and then being able to chase down and kill whatever it wants and stuff like that. Like turning Gundams being garbage until it gets its ult, just stuff like that. They don't pay attention to any of that stuff. Like it's like they like put up random things on the dartboard and they threw a dart in there. It's like, I don't get it. I mean, I get it. I know why they do this, but... So, anyway, actual numbers now. Pale Rider. The G maneuver Hades was outputting much more damage on their G maneuvers. Okay, it's kind of to be expected. It just frags damage. What it does. So we increase its activation threshold to lower the frequency of its use. Its general performance also outclassed other range units, so will not be receiving any increased main weapon ammunition count to maintain balance. Again, same problem. This ultimate is meant to just deal damage and kill things, whereas something like RX78 Gundam's ultimate is meant to zone things, right? So why are you trying to compare the two? You shouldn't, but when you balance purely off of numbers, you do it anyway. All right. The duration of its EMP grenade slow effect will be extended to give it more of a fighting chance against melee units. Okay, I guess this is more about them buffing the counters instead of nerfing the things that are too powerful, which doesn't help anything else that's not Pale Rider or playing with the Pale Rider. But anyway, so EMP grenade, slow duration extended from 1 second to 2 seconds, slow effect reduced from 50% to 35%. This is a good change overall because it allows for more nuance of usage of the character. To opposed to having this like very powerful slow, it has a longer but weaker slow. And longer duration things that are weaker are more fun to play against for other people. Because if you get slowed by EMP grenade, you're not just being rooted in place and just murdered. You're just like, oh, okay, I have to back off. I can't chase him anymore. That kind of thing, right? So this is good. Like you could use it to zone a corner. Whereas with this earlier version, you couldn't use it to zone a corner. You know, something's chasing you, you could toss it behind you, zone yourself, get to escape. Before, it was just like much less likely to hit you, but if it did hit you, it was way powerful and you could die from it. Just, you don't like stuff like that. It gets into the concept of one-shots. Now, Hades. Activation threshold increased from 7,800 to 9,200. So we're looking at it getting like a 1/5, 5.5, 1 in 5.5 increase in its time to use it, you know? So we're looking at 20% increase, which is not good, in my opinion. Basically, what happens is it doesn't really matter how often something comes up if it's still really painful to play against, right? So they said, oh, the ult's too strong. So instead of just nerfing the damage on it, they're like, well, let's just make it not happen as often. Okay. But when people are using this ultimate, they're still going to crap on people, you know? And Hades isn't even like the biggest deal. Like Hades is kind of not that big of a deal, you know? But this kind of concept is like, okay, well, I guess we're just gonna get crapped on when it does come up. It doesn't make people who die to like an ultimate that's powerful feel like they, you know, they're not like, oh, whew, they used it. That's not gonna come up for like 20% longer. I feel so good. That's not what they're gonna do. All right. RX78 Gundam, brain dead busted character and buffed from 7 to 8 ammo. Okay. The weird. The Sazabi change is just completely just, I don't know what the hell they think they're doing. The immediate damage of the beam shot rifle was too powerful at close range. I don't think it was, to be completely honest. Like, the problem was not how the shotgun was powerful. The problem is that you could shield yourself and shoot. So if you did get on top of something, it would just die. That didn't have a stun. So it's been slightly reduced. On the other hand, with range units getting more ammunition, we foresee its shield being broken faster. Oh, okay. So that means you're going to buff the shield, right, to compensate for that. So we increase the range damage fall off, allowing you to shoot further than before in battle. Okay. So we're taking the tanky character that's supposed to be like close range holding a corner or something. And we're like, dang, bro, let's just make it shoot from farther away and make it weaker. Like, why not just give him Pale Rider's gun, you know? And let us stand far away. This is stupid. We'll see if it's actually a nerf or a buff, just because it is a 10% reduction in damage with like a slight range buff. But it might allow you to like... Actually, no, it's just gonna be a straight nerf, probably. Like, with the 10% damage nerf, you were doing 596 damage to the head with max damage. So if you got close-ish to somebody, you could get a 2-shot on a 1000 hit point hero, which, again, Sazabi beam shot rifle's too powerful, 2-shotting, but, you know, Exia isn't too powerful 1-shotting. Barbatos isn't too strong 1-shotting. Gym Sniper isn't too strong 1-shotting. They probably just saw numbers, bro. They probably just looked and they're like, oh, Sazabi's doing this much damage. Which doesn't tell you anything about, like, whether the damage is as valuable as something else, you know? Like how much damage to elims and stuff like that. It might increase his like effective range a bit, enough that you can get like 3 shots on things that you wouldn't 3-shot from medium distance before, but I don't think that's the case. I think it's just gonna be a nerf. All right, Methuss. Arm beam gun ammo increased by 2. Whatever, I guess. Gym Sniper 2 buff from 5 to 6 ammo. Ah, yes. Now it can kill everyone in your team. Doesn't have to reload at all. It can kill everyone. I mean, this is just... Why are we making it even easier for this character? You know, this character was already busted. It shoots incredibly fast and can one-shot anything in the game, essentially. Like, it one-shots anything up to 1200 HP when they get a slight tick of damage onto them. And then Sazabi's usually die to one-shot also. I don't know why they did this. Numbers, bro. Balancing off of numbers. Win rates and all that. Asshimar, an already super powerful character. 27 to 33. Silly. Stormtrooper. Giga Launcher, DR1 multiplex projectile, 7 to 8, fine, like, whatever. Tornado Gundam is like the one that I think could argue actually for needing a change, so fair, I guess, whatever. Like these like buffs to their ammo is like it's kind of like whatever, but it's just gonna make the game a little bit more annoying, to be honest, because it's just more damage always being pumped out. So it makes the game a little bit more frustrating, but whatever. It's not gonna affect that much. Jim. As with the Sazabi, we foresee Jim's shield breaking faster with range units gaining additional ammunition. We increase the range damage fall off, which I don't really think that's the case because your shield was getting trashed anyway, man. Where'd I go? Your shield was getting trashed anyway. It wasn't getting burst over time. Like they must be evaluating this off of like something where like you're taking like 200 damage per second on Sazabi on with his shield. That's not the case. That thing gets shredded immediately. They don't ever run out of their ammo before your shield's dead, but okay. Anyway, so they're like, okay, Jim's shield's breaking faster with range units gaining additional ammunition, so increase the range damage fall off, allowing you to fight at longer range before. Why? This character's kind of supposed to be like a mid-range, closer range character in the first place. Weird. So, they said, by changing the above, there would be a difference in the effective ranges of the detonator bomb and the beam spray gun, which are both often used at close range. To combat this, we will increase the throwing speed and range of the detonator bomb, allowing it to be thrown within the new effective range of the beam spray gun. Great. Yeah, by the way, like all the hit scan characters have like the same range anyway, so it doesn't really change anything. Weird. It's just, again, oh yeah, we gave these characters shields because we want to make them nuanced. Oh well, let's just make them more standardized by pushing them further away and making them play from mid-range. Like, why aren't we playing Call of Duty? Why isn't everything just a mid-range character at this point? You know? Gundam Exia, right? Here's where things should get juicy and where things should be, you know, like, dealt with, right? The ability that starts this combo, the Jin Sword Russian Slash, deals 20% more damage in a certain time frame on average than expected. Again, bro, numbers. Reducing this cooldown by 2 or like by 25% really, 25% nerf is not going to reduce the damage by 20%. You know? Like, this necessarily wasn't even really its choke on its engagements. Its choke on its engagements was probably gonna be more like its health, right? You know, you engage, hit your combo, get a one-shot combo on things, get out, then you have to go get health. And by the time you stage to go again, this time frame is probably not going to change things very much, right? And it definitely doesn't change its ultimate. They reduced the damage by 50% or by 50, guys. So, you know, when you're getting hard stunned and pushed around by its stun and its push ability, I hope you guys understand that you should feel blessed to have 50 reduced damage. This is dumb. It's the same thing, same problem. Instead of just nerfing it, like taking away its stun, taking away the spin and slashes push. They're like, because this character should know how to stun in the first place. That's just silly. Why does it have that? It doesn't need it. You know? Like imagine if Genji had a stun in Overwatch, the character would be meta like all the time. But this doesn't change anything. This is a bad change. The character is just as busted as it was before. Marasai. Compared to other units, the stats for the Marasai did not steer too far from expectations. Talking about stats, man. But with just one combo, it could almost always disable any enemy unit, boosting its kill numbers. To combat this, we'll be reducing the speed of the first move of its combo, the Sea Snake, so its hook. We don't expect this adjustment to affect Marasai's abilities at close range, but it might require more skill to land the ability at longer distances. Okay, so they just made this ability feel worse for the player, but not feel worse for who they're playing against, right? Nobody was really complaining about losing a 1v1 versus a Marasai to a hook, you know? Like nobody was playing Pale Rider and they start pumping damage into a Marasai and then it hooks them like standing out in the open. No one really complained about that, you know, because it's a skill shot. Like that's not that big of a deal. It's like, oh, okay, well if they were playing RX78 Gundam, they would have 2-tapped me. I guess 3-tapped me, right? They would have just clicked on me, like that's what happened. That's basically what happens, it's a skill thing, right? A moderately fair skill thing. What people hated about it is the fact that you would just randomly get hooked around corners. You barely peek a corner, you get hooked. You have good positioning, you get killed because of it. Because you just happen to peek when they popped it out. The fact that anytime you got hooked, it was an insta kill because you're getting stunned the whole duration. Pulled super far. Stunned again with the beam blade. You know, Marasai, and like I talked about this in one of my videos. Someone was getting a little bit upset at me for talking about changing Marasai to be more tanky, having like a lower range on his hook. And I was like, look, dude, and like making so the hook isn't like a guaranteed kill all the time, or like a displacement thing and you pull it into teammates and stuff like that. And it's like, look, man, I don't, like if your character doesn't get changed, it's going to get nerfed. And this is phase 1. More will come. You know, and they didn't even change the fact that its ultimate's busted. Just insta one-shot. They didn't even talk about that. Like everything gets one-shot everywhere, man. It's really stupid. It's not counterplay, man. It feels like you're playing Destiny and like OG Destiny and you're just vibing out in the Crucible and then all of a sudden like a giant orb of death comes and slaps you and you're just dead. There's nothing you can do about it. You see homeboy pull up and you're just like, oh, all right guys, like later, you know, there goes my kill streak. No skill on my part could counter that. And then the next life you come up and there's another golden gun like pelting you in the face too and you're just like, cool, bro, that's fun. I like right, whatever. Anyway, here's where we're gonna see some really interesting fun stuff. So operating Mahiroo requires an understanding of the maps. Yeah, because you made them in a really weird way where grenades bounce off of anything in like an awkward random angle. And in the higher tiers of ranked play, the average damage of its main weapon, Rindo Grenade, comes in second only to Pale Rider. Oh, because as I was talking about, only people at the highest tiers only would possibly play this character on like Black Fort defense or Harbor defense. That's it. You're just spamming into a choke. That's like the hardest choke in any game ever. So of course you're going to be getting a lot of damage. Like, bro, come on. This is, yeah. But why do we care about that? You know? We will forego changes to his main weapon to avoid disrupting the balance. This character is the only character in the game that can't get a full kill on a 1000 hit point character with using every round in its magazine. It's balanced though, guys, because in the really high tiers where they're not playing it in like any general situation, they have the second highest damage. That's balanced, guys. The numbers say so for sure, right? So, however, the fact remains that this unit's win ratio and damage inflicted are lower than expected. Yeah, literally them sitting here like, bro, but in the high tier, big damage. But in general, low. Like, what's going on? I don't understand. Things change. You can't just look at like numbers. Like you can't take the numbers like the average damage in like a mid rank and then apply that to the average damage in like high rank. Because mid rank players who are playing Mahiroo, like some random dude who's playing Mahiroo as a like character is going to be getting lower damage at mid ranks on average in comparison to other people, right? Relative. Just because he's playing in like every situation, he's playing in bad situations because he likes the character. obvious, bro. Come on. So anyway, they decided that the kick needed to have a reduction in cooldown. Okay. How about let us use it when we're ulting instead of locking it for some reason? And then they decided to make the useless cooldown slightly less useless. Except this doesn't change anything because the best usage of this ability, which is a kill me button in 99% of situations, is to use it to animation cancel your primary fire. You pop your primary fire when you need to reload. You right as the number changes to show that you have the ammo in your magazine, you pop this and then you immediately cancel and you can fire faster. Yay, guys! Yay! So if you accidentally press this, you get it back 2 seconds early, so you can animation cancel. Have fun, guys. The Rindo, Grenade, Rush. Oof. I read it weird because this is spelled wrong. My brain messed up. But anyway, this ability has been buffed from 140 to 180, which is fine. I thought this ult was pretty decently balanced, to be honest. And I thought the other ults in the game are just ridiculously OP. So I would have rather seen everything else scaled down. But this guy's going up, and you guys don't want them to just buff everything in the game. The more they buff things, the more everything will turn to one shots and insta kills like Overwatch, and you'll be playing Overwatch 3. Minus all the coordination and stuff like that, and good maps. It'll be fun. Alright, Zaku II Melee. In higher tiers of ranked games, this unit does not dominate others in terms of damage output. Stop looking at damage output, man. That doesn't mean crap. Me charging up my rage and then chasing down a gem and killing them, and then we win the fight because of that, doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to net a lot of damage. You know? Whatever. So, they decided that this G maneuver large heat hawk rotating slash is too powerful. I hope they would have decided that. We will not change its duration, but we determined it would be more satisfying to tune down the damage output and give the enemy team a better chance to take down a Zaku II Melee during its G maneuver. How about you make it so it doesn't slap people around, so they can actually hit a stun on somebody who just uses it in front of somebody with a stun? You know? Like, this thing is still going to be busted. In addition, the concept behind the Zaku II Melee design was to have it be a close-range combat unit, but its main weapon, the large Heat Hawk Slash, works at long ranges. Not really. You'll be adjusting the range of the weapon so it's most effective mid-range. So yeah, when you're slapping people with 85 damage from mid-range, so they reduced the range a bit. It's still quite decent. That's not gonna really change much. You'll be able to chase people down. Like, you're still gonna be able to chase down like a Sazabi in a gym. Like, that's what was having a hard time dealing with you, was like a Sazabi in a gym. And other things with only one movement, like a gem sniper, you know. But anyway, they reduced the large Heat Hawk rotating slash from 250 damage to 200 in the normal form and 375 to 250 in the normal form. You're still going to get absolutely rolled by it. It'll still boop you around. It won't get quite as many kills. It'll average maybe like 0.75 fewer kills per usage. Still busted. I don't know what to tell you guys. I mean, at least they tried to nerf it. They're trying to listen. And then Unicorn Gundam got an increased amount of ammo, which whatever, I guess. I don't. Fine. They did a few other things like eliminating the requirement for party members to be within 3,000 rating points, which is good. Casual players should just play whatever. Who cares? And then they fixed an exploit, or they claim they fixed an exploit. So people would basically be able to leave games and they would receive fewer reduced points from it than taking the loss. Probably because you take like 100 per game if you're like the rating I am when you lose. Fun. And you only get like 60. But they claim that the DCs are confirmed to have been fixed. But I don't really think that's true. I've been getting more DCs than I did before. I think people are gonna be kind of frustrated by this when they keep DCing and they get punished even more. It's gonna be a little bit frustrating. And they say they're trying to fix a matchmaking system. Okay, all right. Now on to what this all means and what the problem with everything is. So, to reiterate really quick, balancing off the data is really bad. It doesn't show the full truth. As I talked about, if both teams are playing the same character, it's going to average the win rates out towards 50. If you have one tricks, people playing the character specifically only in ideal situations, it's going to raise its win rate up, you know? Like, for example, with Mahiroo, if you have like the one tricks playing it, like people will play and they get really good at it. And then they play it and they get really good at it. And then you have people using only in the specific like chokes, like on Harbor. and then the character's win rate is at 50% instead of being 45%, they don't really think it needs changed, you know. But people are still whining about it. Not whining, complaining. Properly complaining. People are like, yo, this character's trash. And they're like, dude, but the numbers, bro. What you mean, the numbers? Like, we have the data. You guys don't. We know you don't. Okay, so it basically leads them into balancing in ways that don't take any sort of human emotions into perspective. Because you can have like things that are really not fun to play against and are just fundamentally broken, but they're balanced, right? Like, for example, queuing into a game and having an auto 50-50 chance of winning or losing, that's balanced. That's fair, you know? That's 100% fair. Is it fun? Absolutely not, you know? Same sort of thing, you could have a character with an ultimate that allows it to get one team wipe, but you can only use it one time per game. And not like per attack or defend, but like one time per game. That's the only time you can use it. And you can't swap off the character afterwards. And it'll net you the same amount of kills on average as like an average damage character's ultimate will. Well, that's as sure as crap's not gonna be fun, bro. When you're vibing, all of a sudden you hear tactical nuke incoming and you just die and you're like, wow, okay. That was used as a really important time for the enemy. This sucks. It's okay, guys, you won't use it again. You know? Like maybe you're in the middle of your ultimate you worked hard to get and that happens to you. It's not gonna be fun. But it's balanced. It is balanced based on numbers. So, this also completely bypasses fundamentals. So like I said, numbers can be balanced, but the structure of the skeleton, the structure in like what is a skeleton of the game will not be balanced. It will not be fundamentally correct, right? And it just makes things feel bad. So they're essentially trying to make a hero shooter, like a team objective hero shooter balance without understanding what the characters are supposed to do and understand why you need each of the like roles. You know, yes, in this game, there's not proper roles like there is in Overwatch, but there are still like damage, tank, and support. They're just damage, tank, damage, support. They have mixed roles, right? They're less of what their specialization is if they're a support or a tank, but they still have that fundamentals. So essentially what happens is, I have people claiming that like, I'm just trying to balance this game to be Overwatch, or I have my head stuck on Overwatch and I don't really know what I'm talking about or whatever, but they never provide a solid argument for why I'm wrong. They're just like, oh, no, there's no roles. They said damage, stop, and they don't listen to what I say, right? And that's what I do. And so essentially it just becomes like, I don't like what he has to say. He's an Overwatch player. He talks about Overwatch. He just wants it. It's just Overwatch to him, but that's not what it is. It's literally just that Overwatch is a game in this fundamental place, this fundamental type of game, a team hero shooter objective game. And that's how that goes, right? So Overwatch is like this, Gundam Evolution is like this. They share the same fundamentals. This would essentially be like me arguing, like discussing Valorant and comparing it to CSGO and how tactical shooters are supposed to be. And someone being like, this isn't CSGO, you don't know what you're talking about, it's different. There are minor differences, but the fundamentals are the same, you know? Fundamentals are the same of how these two games work. So essentially, like, what I am arguing about these things for is that hero shooters are organized in a way that's very heavily related to how real world warfare, real world angle control works, and how the fact that you have things like cover working and how you can't shoot through cover, and then how the fact that a certain group will always have defensive advantage, a certain one will have offensive advantage, and defensive advantage gives you the ability to control where a fight occurs. Offensive advantage only gives you the ability to choose when a fight occurs. And so what happens is the defense always has an advantage in anything that's moderately designed like it should be. And that's how it is in real life. When you have like people trying to storm a castle way back when, the people in the castle had a defensive advantage because they had high ground control and they also had the ability to control choke points. The offense had to try and push through the castle gates, and then they had to, you know, break through them and then take all the high ground positions away from them and stop them from attacking them, right? But you could do that, but you would have a heavy loss of life. So what they would try and do is do two things. They would either try and break, well, before they had cannons and stuff like that, heavy shoes and all that, they would try and develop something that would allow them to tank properly, which was like get a battering ram that had like a cover on it, you know, so you could try and break down the door. so that you weren't just getting murdered as you're trying to push through this choke point, essentially, because that's what a door is, right? And so that's what a tank does, essentially. A tank is something that allows you to, when you're playing on offense, when you're disadvantaged based on positioning, it enables you to make that advantage and disadvantage situation more even. And then one who's playing on defense tries to make that a disadvantage, or tries to make the advantage for his team advantageous for longer. So he tries to keep them stuck in the chokes for longer. And that's how it works, right? Even in a game like Valorant and CSGO, you still have something like work like that, because CSGO and Valorant are all about angle control, all about defensive versus offensive positioning, and people having to push through these choke points without any like tank abilities, right? But instead of these tank abilities, they use smokes, and they use vision obscuring abilities that enable you to walk in and have a reduced chance of just dying because the enemy doesn't know where you are, which is about as effective as a shield. You know what I mean? Like a shield physically stops you from being shot. A smoke stops people from seeing you. And so same thing would work with like a Winston type character, a Sazabi type character, jumping onto whoever is shooting at you so that they can't actually shoot at you. So it makes you safe. And that's what it is. It's about space. Space. What that means. And so, you know, going back to balanced numbering and why balanced numbers and why this is all related, they don't understand any of this concept. They don't understand that you have the tank characters to help make these tank areas, to make areas safe for their team and make other areas more threatened for their enemies. And they don't understand that. And they don't understand that the space is then produced for the damage characters that go and play in that space. And then they have the support characters, which make sure that their tanks stay alive, make sure that their damage characters stay alive. It's this really harmonious three-way of help for each other. And when you have an opposite, like when you have a game like, essentially, if you don't need the tanks, you don't have the tanks in the game's just like Call of Duty. But you don't have anyone making a game like Call of Duty where there's hard choke points. Because imagine playing Call of Duty and you have to push a harbor choke. You would absolutely never get through it, ever. Because you don't have anything that can push through it. Anything that can even provide any sort of space at all. Like, yeah, like a damage character like Asshimar can do that a little bit, but not like a tank can, you know? And so that's why Call of Duty doesn't have these game modes. That's why Call of Duty's game modes are like even. Well, that's why like they're mirrored, you know, on both sides. But the defensive and offensive advantages are negligible. And why Valorant and CSGO have smokes and stuff like that to obscure vision. And so they don't understand that. And so they are just balancing based off of numbers. And they're afraid of tanks and they're afraid to buff tanks. And I would completely be saying this even if I wasn't a tank player, but tanks are crap in this game. They can't push and they can't take space. They haven't been able to stop this sort of stuff, and they had a bunch of like really hard choke points to the game. So basically they're just gonna keep balancing based off of numbers, and they like the philosophies they have in all the characters. They think it works. They think just giving tanks paper mache shields is enough to allow them to push in areas. They probably don't even understand that concept at all. So they've just thrown stuff at us and we're making our best with it. But yeah, guys, long-term future for this stuff, more of the same, to be honest. Disappointing patches. They don't understand what they're doing with this stuff. Disappointing patches are definitely in our future, and they'll make about as much sense as we did. Like, basically, if you don't make a fuss about a character, it's 100% gonna be based off of win rates, and that means we're just gonna be getting completely random patches, and that's that. If you're looking for some more Gundam Evolution videos, then make sure to check out my mobile suit guides. I made one for all original to 14 mobile suits, and I did a Should You Main guide series also, covering the same mobile suits and talking about whether you should actually main them in Gundam Evolution or not.